Hey, what's up guys? This is the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, and it's Xiaomi's ultimate camera phone. Just have a look at this camera bump and you know this thing means business. The main cam features a huge 1-inch type Sony IMX989 sensor, and of course we had to put it to the test. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and this is our Xiaomi 12S Ultra camera review. The Xiaomi 12S Ultra brings your typical flagship grade goodies, but what sets it apart is on the back, its giant, circular triple camera setup. The most notable of these three cameras is the main one. It features a monster 1-inch type sensor, which is about 30% larger than the one in last year's Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra, and that one was already impressive. The 12S Ultra's main cam is at the cutting edge of what you can find on a smartphone these days. That huge sensor is especially impressive when it comes to delivering a naturally blurred background behind your subject. Here are the specs. The main cam has a 50.3 megapixel sensor with dual pixel autofocus and OIS. Then there's a 48 megapixel 5x telephoto and a 48 megapixel ultrawide. They're pretty much the same as last year. And in addition, there's a 3D TOF camera too. But this year there's also a partnership with Leica. You get the Leica branding on the backside. But you'll also notice that the menus and toggles light up red here, rather than the traditional Xiaomi yellow. The 12S Ultra also uses Leica's color science. There are two color modes, Leica Vibrant and Leica Authentic. And there are Leica filters as well if you want to further transform the look of your shots. You can also shoot in RAW format through the Pro mode if you want to take matters into your own hands and tweak the colors in post. One other feature we were glad to see in the Pro mode menu is spot metering. All of this is powered by the new top-end Android chipset, the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. Let's get into the photo quality, starting of course with the main cam. The pictures come out at 12 megapixels by default, and with the Leica Vibrant mode on, these are some of the nicest photos we've seen from a phone. The color rendition is quite likable. Yes, it's vibrant as advertised, but not over the top. There's low noise and a great level of detail, with a natural rendition of textures and balanced sharpening. Dynamic range is excellent as well, although the 12S Ultra goes for a more contrasty look, which makes shadows come out a bit on the darker side. If you switch over to the Leica Authentic mode, you'll notice that the sharpening is dialed down, so foliage and other fine details look even more natural. We're not exactly fans of the tonal properties here though. The images are even more contrasty, with darker shadows, and that results in an overall gloomy sort of look. There's also a vignetting effect at the edges of the frame. The natural bokeh you get from the main cam's large sensor is quite impressive. The defocused backgrounds look even smoother than what we achieved with the Mi 11 Ultra. It's better suited for inanimate objects than people though, as it requires you to be uncomfortably close to the subject. That's when the digital portrait mode comes in handy. In its default state, the photos are slightly cropped compared to the regular photos, but they're still very high in quality. The subject separation is excellent, but the background blur is a bit strong. There are three other varieties of portraits you can take, called Pro lenses. Shots taken with the black and white 35mm Pro lens are quite likable. The lack of color seems to even hide imperfections in the separation. The swirly bokeh 50mm Pro lens uses 2x digital zoom, but the quality is still solid. The swirliness is a neat effect. Then there's the soft focus 90mm Pro lens. This adds even more digital zoom, and the results are overall quite soft and even a bit blurry. Let's talk zooming in general. Like I mentioned, 2x zoom is done through a digital crop from the main cam, but the quality is quite solid, with low noise and excellent color rendition. It's enough that you don't really miss a dedicated 2x zoom lens. 5x zoomed shots from the telephoto camera are good, with a lot of detail, good sharpness, and nice looking, lively colors in the Leica Vibrant mode. The dynamic range is wide, and the shadows don't seem as contrasty as on the main cam. And now the ultrawide. While it's essentially the same hardware as last year, the field of view is a bit narrower here as a result of the heavier distortion correction, but the resulting straighter edges look nice. The quality is excellent overall, with great looking colors and respectable dynamic range, and again a contrasty look. In low light conditions, the 12S Ultra will automatically apply night mode processing to its photos. Those from the main cam are incredible, maybe the best we've seen yet. There's plenty of detail, and it's sharp and crisp, a step up from last year's model. Colors are nicely saturated, and the white balance is handled well. And the dynamic range is super wide, with well-contained highlights and defined light sources, as well as nicely developed and detailed shadows. There's also a dedicated night mode you can toggle, but it doesn't make much of a difference from the automatic one. You can disable the night mode entirely, and the result is a narrower dynamic range with harsher tonal extremes. There does seem to be a bit more sharpness in some scenes, but the difference is small. When shooting at 5x zoom at night, the results from the auto night mode are unreliable. A majority of the time, instead of the telephoto, you'll get a digital crop from the main cam, and the results aren't great. For some reason, if you turn on the dedicated night mode, you always shoot through the telephoto cam. These photos are good. They're sharp and detailed, with likable colors and wide dynamic range. The ultra-wide cam, with auto night mode on, produces respectable results. There's wide dynamic range with a top-class rendition of shadows and highlights, and colors are well saturated. The detail level is very good, but not the absolute best we've seen amongst the flagships. Now let's talk selfies. The Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra had a second screen on the back, which you could use as a viewfinder to take selfies with the rear main camera. Xiaomi has done away with that, so now you're stuck taking regular front-facing selfies. The photos come out at 32 megapixels, and they're good. They're very detailed with mature-looking processing, and dynamic range is wide, especially when HDR kicks in. The colors are accurate, but not too lively. The Xiaomi 12S Ultra can shoot video in up to 8K at 24 FPS with all three of its rear cameras. The 8K footage from the main cam has good exposure, contrast, and dynamic range. The sharpness and detail are a bit less than what we saw in last year's model, but at least we do enjoy the more vibrant colors here. The telephoto cam's 8K footage also doesn't quite match the quality of the Mi 11 Ultra. And the ultra-wide's 8K video is more or less the same quality as last year, a bit on the soft side. When it comes to 4K from the main cam, we again enjoy livelier colors than the previous model. The detail level is very good, and so are the contrast and dynamic range. There is noticeably more sharpening though. 4K footage from the telephoto cam is good, with nice sharpness and detail, but these seem a bit less than last year. The colors are a bit less vibrant than the main cams as well. The ultra-wide cam's 4K is also good, with plenty of detail and contrast, though we again see the same trend of duller looking colors. The stabilization on the 12S Ultra is excellent, for all three cameras and all resolutions all the way up to 8K. You get smooth pans, and nicely ironed out walking shake. At night, the main cam produces some nice 4K video, with a solid amount of detail, saturated colors, and wide dynamic range. There is some noise and softness in the shadows if you look closely. The telephoto cam didn't seem to want to film in the dark. If you zoom at night, you'd end up with a crop from the main cam. And the ultra-wide camera isn't great at night if the scenes are too dark. With more decent lighting, you can end up with something usable. So there you have it guys. The Xiaomi 12S Ultra's cutting-edge main camera provides arguably the best still photos we've seen from a smartphone yet. Plus the telephoto and ultra-wide continue the great performance we saw in last year's Mi 11 Ultra. When it comes to video though, we do see some minor drops in quality compared to last year's model, and the color rendition doesn't line up there between the different cameras. Still, the quality is quite nice. Overall, as a camera phone, we wouldn't hesitate to recommend the 12S Ultra, but sadly this phone is for now China exclusive. Still, it's great to see Xiaomi pushing the boundaries, and this phone, or at least the camera tech, will eventually come to Western markets in some form or another. Thanks for watching guys, and be sure to check out our upcoming review covering all other aspects of the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. See you next time.